Hey guys, Mr. Riz here to help you out with the next part of our PPMAN chapter or section here. What we're going to be looking at are zero and negative exponents today. So let's first look at just kind of decimal wise. We're going to plug some of these numbers into a calculator and see what they equal. And we'll start with the threes. Okay. So 3, if we plug 3 to the 4th power into the calculator, I think that's 81. Yep, that's 81. Okay, 3 cubed, okay, is 27. Just plugging these into a calculator. 3 squared, 3 times 3 is 9. 3 to the 1st power is 3. All right, 3 to the 0 power. Definitely use the calculator for this one. 3 to the 0, we would think, okay, would be 0, but it's actually 1. Okay. 3 to the 1st power, or 3 to the negative 1st. All right, make sure we plug that in, and I get 0.3 repeating. And then 3 to the negative 2nd, plugging that into a calculator. 0.1 repeating. Okay. Oop. I don't think I can undo that. Oh, well. Let's see. 0.1 repeating. Okay, so we notice like it starts out, and as the numbers get lesser, our exponents get lesser, the numbers get smaller. Okay. Alrighty, so other thing here, let's do 10. All right, 10 to the 4th power is 10,000. Hey, Chris. All right, 10 cubed would be 1,000. Okay. 10 squared is 10 times 10, that's 100. 10 to the 1st power, all right, that would be 10. 10 to the 0 power using a calculator, that's 1. Okay. 10 to the negative 1 would be 0.1. And 10 to the negative 2nd is 0.01. All right, so if we notice here, like we have basically in base 10 here, our exponent kind of tells us how many zeros we have, right? We have 4 zeros, 3 zeros, 2 zeros, 1 0. All right, here's one that's, if we think about it, how many zeros would we have? We'd have 0 zeros, so it would be a 1. Now, when we go to negatives, it goes to the other side, right? We get decimals, right? Okay, so one thing we can look at this and we can describe like these are getting smaller. But let's also kind of look at the decimals here. Well, let's look at two things. 3 to the 0 is 1. 10 to the 0 power is 1. If we just take, random number, 7 to the 0 power is 1. So any number to the 0 power is going to equal 1. So that's a fun fact that we have here. All right, here's another thing here. You might know what 0.1 is as a fraction. If you don't, you can use a calculator. 0.1 as a fraction is 1 over 10. If you do the same thing, 0.33 repeating, that as a fraction is 1 over 3. All right, what's 0.01? Well, 0.01 is like 1% or 1 out of 100. And then 0.111 is 1 over 9. So if we look here with the negative exponents, all we're doing here is we're making it a fraction. So we can have 1 over 10 to the 1st, 1 over 3 to the 1st. One thing to think about this, 1 over 100, we could rewrite as 1 over 10 squared. So the negative turns it into a fraction. So let's clear this up. Let's add some rules here. Okay. So for any non-zero number, so if we have an x or y or whatever number, if we have a to the 0 power, it's going to equal 1. And then the other thing is, if we have a negative exponent, we are going to have 1 over a to the positive version of that. Okay. So let's go through, let's apply these rules here and see. Okay. So this x to the negative 2nd power is going to be the same as 1 over 8 squared. Okay. So the negative exponent just turns it into a fraction. Okay. And then what we could do is figure out, okay, 1 over 8 squared is 1 over 64, if we wanted to, or we could leave it like that. It depends if they want it as a power or as a reduced fraction. All right, 17 to the 0 power. Anything to the 0 power is 1. All right, what about -2 to the -6 power? Okay, well, -2 is a base, so remember those bases don't change. The -6 power is just going to make it a fraction, and we're going to make it a +6 on the bottom. All right, -10 to the 0. Anything to the 0 power is 1, so those are always easy problems there. All right, 4 to the -3rd. 4 to the -3rd would be a fraction of 1 over 4 cubed. And then 5 to the 0 power, anything to the 0 power is 1. Okay, hopefully we have these properties now. We're kind of realize, okay, what we've been doing all PPMAN. So now what we're going to do is kind of combine those, okay? How can we rewrite or simplify expressions that have multiple parts here? Well, one thing I like to look at here when we have multiple parts is we can go through and determine, okay, what's going to be on the top, what's going to be on the bottom. Now, even numbers here have a power, like 3 technically is to the power of 1. Anything to a positive number is going to be on top of a fraction. Anything with a negative is going to be on the bottom. And all we're going to do is just rewrite these. So 3 is on the top. Same thing with the m squared is on the top because those are both positive. The w, though, is a -3rd, so we're going to put it on the bottom. And then once we change its sign, we change the sign. Change the side of the fraction it's on, we change the sign. Okay. All right, next one here, we're going to do it the long way, but then we're going to kind of talk about the shortcut here. All right, if we got 1 over a to the -2nd. Okay, so really this is 1 over, I guess we could turn this into a fraction, 1 over a squared. Okay, so that's kind of weird, right? We can take a number and divide it by a fraction. Well, mathematically, there's a little property that says instead of dividing by a fraction, we can multiply it by its reciprocal, meaning we can multiply it by a squared over 1. And 1 times a squared over 1 is just a squared over 1, which is just a squared. So I would say the key here is this part, this statement right here. The final answer is a squared. But to notice here is if we ever have a negative exponent on the bottom, we can switch it to the top and make it a positive. So negative exponents, I always think about switches the side of the fraction that it's on. If it's on the numerator, because technically like this problem here, this one's on the numerator, it switches down to the bottom on the denominator. This one starts in the denominator, we switch it up to the top. Okay. And then if we want to evaluate here, so the next is to evaluate. We're going to reduce this here, and then we're going to plug in some numbers. So this next problem here, we're going to evaluate. We're going to figure out what all these equal. But what we probably should do is to simplify this here. So let's rewrite this. If we got 2x squared y to the -3rd. All right, so we think about this here, that 2x squared is going to stay on the top. Y to the 3rd is going to go on the bottom. And then since it says evaluate, let's plug in these numbers here. We're going to plug in 3 for x and -2 for y. So what's 2 times 3 squared over 2 cubed? All right, calculator time. All right, 3 squared, we got to do that part first. 3 squared is 9. 9 times 2 is 18. 2 cubed, plugging that into a calculator here. 2 times 2 times 2 is 8. And then we just see, can we reduce that fraction here? Yeah, we can divide them both by 2, so that is 9 over 4. All right, next, we got x to the 0, y to the -2nd. All right, well, we know x to the 0 is 1, and y to the -2nd would just move down to the bottom. Okay, so that just becomes 1 over y squared, simplified, and we're just going to plug in our -2. So what's 1 over, oh, you know what? I just realized something here. I was supposed to plug in a -2 here, which that'd make it a -8, meaning that'd be a -9 over 4. All right, so we got -2 squared. -2 times -2 is 4. So that's 1/4. All right, next one we got, let's see, y to the 0 over x cubed. Y to the 0 is 1. X cubed, now it's on the bottom, but it's going to stay on the bottom. All right, it's positive. You only change it if that was negative. All right, so we're going to just plug in our 3. So what's 1 over 3 cubed? 3 times 3 times 3 is 27. All right, last problem here. Let's clean this up. Okay, we got 1 over yx cubed. All right, so the x in the negative third is on the bottom. It's going to move to the top, become positive, and the y goes away. Now, we could put a 1 up here on the top, but really, 1 times x cubed. It's the same thing. Let's plug in our numbers. So we're going to plug in 3 for x, -2 for y. So really, we're just going to do 3 times 3, that's 27 over -2. And that doesn't reduce, so put a box around it. That's the problem. All right, so we're learning some of these properties. We got one more little part to talk about before we wrap up this section here. But thanks for watching, guys, and I will see you next time. If you have any questions, make sure you guys ask. Good luck on the edge elastic. Have a good one.